What?
Yeah.
Hi, welcome to Flex Life Fi, and we're here talking about how to have your money bring home friends, right?
Bringing home friends. It's always good to be with friends.
It's always good to be with friends, right?
Absolutely.
Speaking of which, I'm going to miss you when I'm gone.
I know. You're going to be gone for a long time.
Well, I'm going to be gone for a week, but then you're leaving, so.
I know.
We're sneaking in one last podcast just because we can. And we want to get this information out to you because we feel like it's important. And if you can get your money to make you money, then you won't be going to work for as long, right?
Well, yeah. And so we're talking about the 4 quadrants of Kiyosaki's right after Rich Dad, Poor Dad's first book, or Robert Kiyosaki's first book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He kind of came out with the cash flow quadrant, right?
Cash flow quadrant. And this made a big impact on me when I read it a long time ago, but I didn't understand it. So I wanted to go over it a little bit more simple.
So he made 4 quadrants, and what are those 4 quadrants?
Well, we're going to talk about the right side and the left side, and we want to get everybody moved, no matter how you do it, from the right side of this quadrant, E and S, to B and I. And E stands for if you're
employee.
And Kiyosaki, I'm just going to run over the quick things that he talks about is, and this is his words, not mine. It's a steady paycheck. Taxes are paid. Like to the government, you don't have to send in checks because your employer's going to send out your FICA and your Medicare and that sort of thing. You have a routine schedule. You have a clear job description. And he said this is appealing to a lot of people. And it's like some doctors, teachers, professors, people that do basically a 9-to-5 job and they don't have to worry about the business. The lower quadrant is the S, and that's like a self-employed, right?
Yep, that's what we are out here.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about the self-employed, and the advantages of that is you're your own boss because you are your business.
Yep. If we're not working,
you're not making money.
We're not making money.
Right. You value security. So this is Kiyosaki. This isn't us, but he's saying that employee, you are at a disadvantage because you're not in control of your own job. So you could have a layoff, the business could close, they could decide to go with a different staffing ratio.
Well, absolutely.
But here you're your own boss, so you're like, you value security, so you secure your own contract.
Well, we can get as many contracts as we can work.
Right, and it's most stable way to generate income. So I know a lot of people are afraid to go from W-2 to 1099, but actually 1099 is more stable.
Right, because we can go all over the country. We can get as many contracts as we can and keep working.
So your income is your business. So you're employing yourself. You're guaranteeing high quality, and that's basically the self-employed in a nutshell. The disadvantages of being an employee is lack of control of your own work. So if they say you're going to start coming in at 6 a.m., you're going to start coming in at 6 a.m., right?
Pretty much.
Here, we got to get the job done. So whatever it takes to get the job done. If John wants to show up early, if I want to show up early, if I want to take today's call, you want to take today's call. If
we need to take a week off, we're going to figure out how to arrange taking a week off.
Without approval from any major person, as long as it's covered.
So long as everything's covered.
So that's a disadvantage. It's the most unstable way because of layoffs, economic downturn, and it's very, very difficult to build wealth if you're not investing in the employee section.
Right.
If you're self-employed, most small businesses fail. That's a huge disadvantage. But as Scott Trench says, 9 out of 10 businesses fail, so start 10 businesses.
Yep.
It's different if you're selling your services, like an attorney or a doctor or anesthesia or whoever, where you're selling your services, so there's not like an inventory and that sort of thing.
Right.
So it's a little bit easier to make that work as long as you stay healthy and are able to go to work and don't want to invest in a business that you have to have supply inventory,
right.
Stuff like that. But you are the business, so that's a huge disadvantage. If you don't want to make money, you don't make money.
Right. So if you're sick or unable to go to work, you're not bringing in any income. So that's why a lot of people are talking about like disability insurance and all the different things that you have to have in place if you're going to be self-employed. So that's why we're always saying, do you self-insure? Is there other things that you can do to have other types of income? So that's what we want to talk about today, is what are the other things that we can do to bring in other types of income and or your money making friends.
So he says self-employed is also small business. So you're kind of guaranteeing that one of the guys that we work with here, he's guaranteeing that if me or John can't show up, he'll show up.
Right.
So that's kind of small business or self-employed. That kind of fits in the same category. But if you move up and over here to the B, that's a big business. That's where you're...
Well, it's bigger business. I would say where you're in charge, but not working in the business.
You're not part of
the everyday operations.
Guaranteeing that money comes in. So let's say, let's use Jeff Bezos, Amazon. He worked out of his garage. He was the small business himself. He was doing his shipping.
He was having to work in the business, but then he hired himself out of the business.
And so the big business or the business is bringing him money. So this side of the quadrant over here is those dollars are going out whether you go to work or not, and that's where you want to get to. But anybody, and this is what we want to emphasize, is anybody can get to where their money is bringing them friends by just getting over into the investor. So if you're an employee or you're a small business, as long as you're putting money away into a money market account, well, that's probably a small interest investment.
And that's a smaller investment, but it's still an investment. So that's one way to put money away for your retirement or your passive income. If you're looking to retire early, you could put money into, say, your Roth account and then be able to take out some of that money that you put into it before you officially retire if you're planning to retire early. So that would be one way to do it. But other investments like Airbnbs or other businesses that will bring in some kind of an income that you're not having to work in.
Right.
Those types of investments might be investments that would bring back friends earlier, or maybe a loan to a business, or someone that's looking to start a business would be another type of investment that could bring back friends before, say, a retirement. But it could be that you put that into a retirement type of account, and that would bring back friends in a later date, either tax-free if it's in a Roth type of account, or in a taxable account when you retire.
So as I think I've talked about, as I started out as an E, I was a W-2 for 7 years, changed jobs to a different W-2 company because of disagreements that I had with how they were going to staff us. It was nothing against the hospital or anything or the people I worked with. They were absolutely lovely, but I needed to get out of a toxic environment, and I went to another W-2 job. Well, when I went to the second W-2 job, I had that money from my retirement in my 401k just sitting there. And I'm like, how can I get out of this going to work every single day? And so I'm like, maybe I could do some 1099 on the side where I am my business. And I started a continuing education seminar business and ended up employing myself with 1099 through that same business. But that allowed me to put more money into my solo 401k.
Right.
And then now my investments are getting to where they're bringing back friends.
Right.
So that initial investment that Bill and I did for $93,000, I believe, was our first property. The tenants have been paying the mortgage. The value of the homes went up. So if we sold that property, it would bring home significant friends.
Yeah. So I have a little bit of the S, B, and I. So for the S, of course, I'm anesthesia out here. For the B, I had the laundromat, and I have two part-time employees that stay underneath the amount of hours, so I can still do my solo 401k, and I can still do, have them working very part-time just to be able to clean and get things done that need to be done at the laundromat, and still, run things on the day-to-day operations, and I can still do most of the work for that, but while I'm gone, so I don't have to be working in the business, but I can work on the business.
Right.
And then on the investor side, I'm still using the money that comes in from my self-employed and the business, and I can invest in our real estate and Airbnbs. So we have the Airbnbs that we're working on. Mostly, we still have to work in them sometimes, as far as going to either clean for a quick turnaround or something of that nature. But otherwise, we're still working on that business mostly by arranging contractors or arranging somebody to go over and clean it or take care of it. And of course, most of the time, just like you, we're on the phone and dealing with somebody that needs something. But we're using those three quadrants mostly to arrange
Move over
either
this way.
we're trying to get into that investor more on the passive side to have money coming in and bringing its friends in, and trying to keep our total investment lower and having more of the money come in based on the total equity and the total amount that is invested, with using some of the bank's equity as well. So we have a larger return than would be normally a stock market type 7 to 8%. So we're using it to have more friends come over to the party than just me being at the party with one other friend.
Well, I would say that anybody can use the right side of this to work over to the left side, and that's what we're trying to do. Is we're trying to go from the S over to the B and the I, which is we're guaranteeing we're putting our name behind what we're investing in. So if our investments aren't paying or is not as busy, or the laundromat needs a repair or whatever, we can guarantee that repair income so that we don't have a failure, that we can continue to bankroll it until the investments actually bring in more money than us going to work.
Right.
And so I just wanted to throw out there, and I'll do one, you do one.
Okay.
How about we do that? Real estate?
For investment?
Yeah.
Okay, well, along the same path,
Real estate.
real estate and Airbnbs.
Okay. And then I have invested in a small startup company that's a book. It's called Life is Rosy, and it's about a reindeer, and it's about encouraging people to find their own gift and encouraging people to not do what everybody else is doing, because it could be your talents is not my talent. So we did a small investment into a small startup company, hoping that will come out. How about another one now?
We've done the
Syndications, right?
Well, syndications, I can count that as real estate too. So how about the loans to other small businesses?
Yeah, private investing. So I've used a private investor, and that really helped me out a lot. And so I thought, if I can do that at a much smaller scale to help other small businesses get started, or have...
And I've done small investments into other businesses and private stock offerings into some small businesses. Like there's the Armed Forces Brewery. So if you were ever in the Armed Forces, you might know of the Armed Forces Brewery. You can do as small as like a $700 or $1,000 investment into their stock.
So you can start small, right?
You can start very small.
And I know you have done gas and oil?
Oil and gas, so mineral rights. I haven't gone into the oil well itself, but mineral rights, yeah.
Okay, and that's returning pretty well for you right now, right?
So far, it's been decent, yeah.
Let me see. I'm trying to think of... We've done a lot of private lending, I guess, in our account. So I haven't done syndications like you.
I've done the syndications. Those haven't done as well as regular properties, so I can't really be a recommender of that at this point. But that may turn around with the current market being a little more depressed and the interest rates coming down. So
Right.
maybe over the next couple of years that will start to turn around a little bit.
We also in a previous podcast talked with Jordan Shepard, and you could take like a solo 401k if you're in the S quadrant here with the self-employed. I would say not a small business, but self-employed. And you could even open. Let's say you don't want to get into any of this. Do what you know. Open a Fidelity account. Open a Vanguard account. You could still do like S&P 500. You could do.
Well, even those have like crypto funds and that kind of thing. You could do some sort of a crypto investing fund. Even like Fidelity has different cryptos that you can invest in now. So you
I don't
could
know
do
if
that
I know
you wanted
enough
to.
about that.
Well, I don't either.
I haven't.
Quite honestly.
I haven't been brave enough to try crypto, but that's an option. But you could totally do index funds with your solo 401k if you weren't employed by an employer.
Well, and if you don't like Robert Kiyosaki, maybe you like the simple path to wealth.
Yeah.
That's right along that path, and
Right.
that's if you've got plenty of time, that's an easy way to try and get there. But that's more of going along that employee route and the self-employed route, and you put a small amount, or I think probably need a large amount away each month to be able to get there. But if you can do it consistently over a long period of time, that's what the simple path to wealth recommends.
Right.
So we can even put that in the comments. That way somebody has a link to it. That'd be an easy thing to do. So
what we're saying is just get started. Maybe put into your 401k if you're a W-2 employee. Open a solo 401k or some type of investment. You
get
can do
started.
Yeah, after tax brokerage account, or
having those funds and having that ability to put it away and have it start growing, that allows you to get to that BNI area in the future. So even if those grow slowly, then you start looking for those businesses or those other alternative investments. That way you have the money when it comes time to be the investor.
Right. If the opportunity arises and you haven't been putting away and waiting for that opportunity, then you don't have the opportunity to invest when the opportunity does come by.
Right. And some of these investments in businesses, they require you to be a accredited investor, and that has different IRS rules. So an accredited investor is either one that makes a certain amount each year, which is usually for an individual over $200,000 for 2 years in a row, or a couple that makes over $300,000 for 2 years in a row, or they have over $1 million in net worth, and that's as of this year, 2025's tax rules.
I think that's just mainly so that you don't put, you only have $50,000 and that's your entire
life savings.
Yeah,
and that's
and
so you don't lose your entire life savings
you've saved that for 20, 30 years, and then you put it in this one investment.
And it loses.
Right. So it's just saying that you could replace
an accredited investment is considered by the IRS to be a riskier investment, and that's just because you can lose everything.
Yeah.
And that's some of these syndications that I'm talking about. Even as early as yesterday and today, I've received emails that there's a consideration to sell and you may lose 30 to 40% of your initial investment.
Oh, I
and
love those emails.
If that's the case, then they do decide to sell. That means I've lost 30 to 40% of that investment. And it's not like it's the end of the world, but it is not an email that you want to receive about an investment. But thankfully, that's a smaller part of the portfolio, and I didn't invest the huge amount that others have invested. And I know that others have invested large amounts, and I was skeptical, and I wanted to start out slow and timid, and I'm thankful I did start out slow and timid.
Well, I will say, though, I have a lot of confidence that if I put my name behind it, I'm going to stand behind it. So when you invest in a syndication, you absolutely have no control.
There's zero control, and that's why
It's supposed to be more passive.
Right, and so when I am going to go all into an investment that I am controlling, at least I know that I can affect it. But if it's something that somebody else controls, I'm not going to put as much of an investment in, if that makes sense. I'm going to put a smaller investment in and see how it does before I go putting larger investments in. So I wanted to see how these smaller investments with these people did before I put in a larger investment. So I start out small and then I grow those investments over time. And if they don't perform how I expect, then I go on to another type of investment.
I'd say this worked well, or I don't really want to do this again.
Right.
But just getting started and doing what you know. And I didn't know much about real estate for sure. And so I'm not sure how you learned about real estate, but I did a lot of my research on YouTube and listening to other podcasts and listening to other people's mistakes.
Well, you heard my story. I started out with a $20,000 house. I didn't go all in.
Or wins, you know.
I started out with small wins.
But if you hadn't had the money to do that opportunity, you couldn't have jumped on it, right?
Right. I mean, and I was in the E quadrant. I was in the Navy. I was an employee when I did that.
Yeah.
You know, I was only making, I think, $50,000 or $60,000 a year as a officer, and that was many years ago now.
Yeah.
When that was happening. So
thank you for your service, by the way.
And Bill. So it's all a military town around here.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. We're very much go Navy.
Go Navy.
But if you have any questions or something that you've invested in, and tell us your results. Tell us good, bad, or the ugly. But we just want you to get started and get in that investment quadrant. If you go to work every day for the rest of your life and you are not putting money away, you're never going to have those money friends come over, are you?
Well, absolutely. And there's many different ways to invest. There's many different types of businesses. I mean, from franchises to, you know, going it on your own and developing a laundromat. I mean, there is, you can buy a business that you are not the sole manager and you don't have to be there every day,
right.
Or you can buy a business that you are going to be the employee working every day. So you have to be really careful of what you do, and you have to really, you know, look into what you're going to do before you jump 2 feet in. So
well, they say buy yourself an investment, not buy yourself a job.
Yeah, you have to make sure you're looking at your freedom too. So,
right.
All I can say is, you know, we are every day trying to optimize this financial independence aspect. And so if we can get towards that BNI quadrant as opposed to this self-employed and employee quadrant,
right.
I think if we're getting 1% better each time,
right,
we're doing what we're supposed to. So we'll keep making these and kind of continuing down that path. What do you think?
I hope people jump on and they'll we can encourage them, they can encourage us, and we can all grow together. And like you said, the 1%, if you just make improvements every year or you're attempting, then you start to get results. And if you start seeing the vision and putting into the vision will pay you back for the effort that you put forward.
And start with those small investments. It doesn't have to be a huge investment. I mean, the loans that we've done is anywhere from, you know, $500 to $5,000. It doesn't have to be a huge number. A lot of people think, oh my gosh, I'm going to have $50,000 or $100,000 to be able to get started. It's just not true.
Well, if you don't believe in small loans, look at those stupid
payday loans,
pawn shop loans, all those that are doing 30 to 50% interest, and you can do somebody else a favor, and then they can. I mean, you've got to believe in them, you know.
Well, yeah, I would not go making dumb investments or
right.
You know, trying to.
There's a reason they're 30 to 50%, because if they default, then they've still made their money.
And they're more likely to default.
Right.
So be careful in what you do too. Don't make a bad investment either. All right, for Flex Life 5.
This is Suzanne.
And I'm John. Next time.